Amboga, where a 20-year-old Nyinaneza Emily was killed and 3 others injured, as well as the suicide bomb attack on Swift bus.
Kampala on Saturday, leaving 2 people dead and others injured. Hassan Kasinje, the chief political commissioner of police, said in a tweet that the blast in Kamamboga left a young woman and man fatally wounded and others admitted with serious injuries. Immediately after, 2 people were on Monday evening killed, while several others were injured in a bus explosion, the second attack in 2 days. The bus, belonging to Swift Safaris Bus Company under registration UAU 989T, was traveling from Kampala to Bushenyi in western Uganda. Police have therefore linked the 2 separate bomb attacks in the country to Allied Democratic Forces, rebels currently operating in eastern region of the Democratic Republic of Congo. Addressing the media, the police spokesperson Fred Enang notes that they have arrested some individuals behind terrorist financing and those that have been receiving money from the ADF sources. Ewan Aisha Kadshabe was one of them.
So she was actually arrested yesterday. So in our counter-terror operations, we've also been tracking down several operators involved in money laundering and terrorist financing. So far, we've managed to arrest 3 collaborators who were receiving money from the ADF sources and distributing it to their recipients, to their operatives and agents in the country. Amongst those arrested, we have Abdurrahman Waivi, we have Sanyu Nachitende. These 2 have so far received $114,000, which we have been able to track. And they have distributed it to their recipients on behalf of the ADF. We've now managed to track one of the recipients who received funds to facilitate terror activities. She was tracked down and arrested in Hoima, Ewan Aisha Kadshabe. So this brings to 3 those ones. But we are also interesting ourselves on funding that is being channeled through some of the petroleum companies and real estate dealers. We are tracking down finances to a tune of $400,000 through petroleum companies. And we are going to ensure that the proprietors, the agents and collaborators disguising as petrol dealers in the country are arrested and brought to book. Now, as you're all aware, during the same period, we managed to round up 13 rebel collaborators, 11 of whom were part of the hostile rebel group, the Uganda Homeland Liberation Movement, or Front.
Enang said remnants of the bomb that exploded on Monday evening have given a clue to security about the people behind the attack, noting that the ADF is responsible for the attacks. Security says they are still tracking down several collaborators involved in money laundering and terrorist financing. So far, 2 have been arrested. In those include Abdurrahman Wahibi and Sanyu Nachitende, who have so far received $114,000 and distributed it to their recipients on behalf of the ADF. The funding has also been channeled through real estate dealers. Security believes that a one made in Kulubo, aka Pansha, who has been in the Democratic Republic of Congo for the last 6 years, is the main man commanding the attacks. Police said Nkulubo coordinated an incident in Pader targeting mourners at the burial of late AIGP General Paul Lokech. The attack was not successful.
It's called Made in Karuvo, the Punisher, AK, so and so. He has so many names on him. You'll get a better picture in form of a soft copy, and then you'll use that. So he has been the one behind, he has been the mastermind behind this new wave. The Abdurrahman, one of those recipients of money from ADF, and has been passing it on. Together with the SANU, they received $114,000 over a period. So he's been one of those who are arrested and is actually with us. Then we have Sanyu Nachitende. This one traveled up to Zambia and met a contact from South Africa. So we also arrested her. She's actually with us in our custody. And we continue to track them down. 44 years. Is the one who has been behind the soft target attacks on UPDF detaches in Gulu and in the West Nile region.
Started in 1996, the Allied Democratic Forces Group was formed out of remnants of the National Army of the Liberation of Uganda, NALU, and Jamil Mukulu was the group's leader until a few years ago when he was captured by the Tanzanian forces before he was repatriated back to Uganda, where he is currently detained. Whereas the group occasionally operated in Uganda, it was later flushed out in the thick Eastern Democratic Republic forest, from where it carries out attacks in the neighboring villages, where they have killed more than 1,000 people in the field.
Security says they are still tracking down several collaborators involved in the continuous explosives in Uganda. And one happened in Komamboga and the other just recently here in PG, the same story here. If you can see where I was mentioning the fact that security plays a very huge role in facilitating economic activities in the country. And the same is applying to the nature of safety. Because if you look at transportation, who would imagine that explosion can even happen in a country like Uganda in our transportation sector? That is where I think there was a tweet coming in from Afande Kasinje, which was saying that to all the bus operators and all the taxi operators, it's high time you checked which passenger is approaching or which passenger is boarding your bus and what are they carrying with them. You need to do a thorough checkup. I think it is time the garage got back into the situation because these checkpoints are going to get back to activity. I think, are we having domestic terrorists in the country? Because if it's domestic terrorists, because if you look at the suspects in this case or in this matter are all Ugandans, and at this time you would wonder that means the enemy is just within. And if you're to still follow up on the situation, I guess as a country we need to pay very, very serious attention on what is happening in our country. So everyone should pay caution on a neighbor. Look at the tenants. If you're a landlord, you need to understand which person has just arrived in your houses and what do people do. I think it is high time we even found out what our neighbors doing. If it's your friend, check on your friends. What are they doing? Are they doing something legal? Or if you're feeling suspicious of your neighbor, it is high time you try to track down and realize what are they doing, because you never know at any one point something may happen to you as well. So far, 2 have been arrested, and these include Abdullahim Waibi and Sanyu Nachitende, who have so far received $114,000 and distributed it to their recipients on behalf of the ADF. According to the police, the funding has also been channeled through selected petroleum companies and real estate dealers. Security believes that a one Medi Nkalubo, aka Martin MD, aka Benjo, aka Benjamin Franklin, aka Medili, aka Punisher, you can see all those names for one individual, having all those names attached to him, who has been in the DRC for the last 6 years, is the main man commanding the attack. So if at all you know him as Martin MD or Benjo or Benjamin Franklin, you remember those days of the curious case of Benjamin Button. Name sounds or rings a bell to my ears here. Okay, away from that, let's check out the next story from the business world. Stakeholders have been asked to support farmers towards production of indigenous foods to hike forces of demand and supply. During an interview with Smart 24 TV, Ruth Nabagala, the program officer, Agriculture Market Development at Pelham, Uganda, underscored the need to push demand for indigenous foods through consumer awareness. She also called on the general public to embrace production of indigenous foods as they are waiting for government to step in. Pelham, Uganda is to have a third national agroecology actors symposium themed transformation or transforming Ugandan food system through the agroecology. Let's have details of this story.
The public has less appreciation of indigenous foods. The public doesn't try to understand indigenous foods. The public doesn't try to understand the way we farm without destroying the environment. So that's why we organize these functions, these events every year, so that we pull in the public, because when we have the public, then the government will be attracted. The media will be attracted.
We want to ensure that we have higher and better yields for the smallholder farmers. Then also we work on agriculture market development, which my colleague Ruth Nabagala is taking lead on. And generally what we're trying to do here is ensure that the smallholder farmers can produce more ecologically, but also get better markets for their produce. And in that way, we enhance their livelihoods. And also we work on issues of policy. How do we create an enabling policy environment to support the lives of the smallholder farmers?
All right, so you can continue looking at the situation in Uganda of developing each other and looking at how people are being involved in the agricultural sector mainly. Now this is, if you look at the production of our indigenous foods, look at one would ask which indigenous foods here, away from the junk food. Look at the matoke, look at our beans, look at our... Let's look at even our local chicken. This is some of the indigenous foods. But if we were to look at this genre of the agricultural part of it in terms of planting and harvesting, we're looking at matoke, we're looking at maize, let's look at sweet potatoes, Irish potatoes, cassava, name all of that. And I've actually said I've got a privilege to have cultivated some of these indigenous foods. I remember back in the day when I was between 14 to 16 years, I engaged in cultivation of sweet potatoes. You know those sweet potato heaps. I think that was when I was with my auntie in Mukono. That is when I learned the importance of agriculture in a country. And I guess maybe in the later years I'll engage back into this agriculture. It felt sweet, and it is good when you're doing something out of your own sweat and you realize a plant is actually coming out to grow behind it. So, and at the end of the day, there is a meal on the table and you draw back some memories of how you were sweating to get that food into that garden. So I think I was practicing cultivation of sweet potatoes, cassava. I'm remembering, not so much of matoke because it needs some expertise in there. But if you look at the other scenarios, I guess I was involved in that. I was also involved in the cultivation of elephant grass, ebisagazi. So most probably because those are some of the situations here, as you could see. Now the general public have been called on to embrace production of indigenous foods as they are waiting for the government to step in. Pelham is actually set to have a third national agroecology actors symposium themed transforming Ugandan food system through the agroecology. So we have the agriculture, we have the food, we have the weather supporting us. I mean, this is not the time where we need to come out and say, no, we shouldn't do this, we should do this, we should do this. And it's high time we kick off and join the rest to the production and processing of our indigenous foods. Away from that, let's move on to the next story. Uganda's public debt goes up by 22.8% to 71.6 trillion Ugandan shillings. According to the Bank of Uganda's statement on the economy, on the report dated September 2021, Uganda's public debt has gone up by 22.8% to 71.6 trillion Ugandan shillings. Increased over the year. This actually increased over the year was due to significant spending pressures and related to loan disbursements to counter the adverse effects of the pandemic. According to the Bank of Uganda, that was the state of the economy, a report that was dated September 2021. The report reveals that the provisional debt of a total public debt stock stood at 71.6 trillion in nominal terms, and at end of June 2021, comprising of 44.9 trillion and 26.7 trillion of external debt and domestic debt, respectively, an increase of 22.8% relative to June 2020. The report further says that the debt service to tax revenue ratio increased gradually to 24.8% in June 2021, up from 21.7% in June 2020, higher than 22.4% observed in June way back in 2019. The International Monetary Fund extended credit facility financial program, which is expected to support post-COVID-19 recovery and lend support to the implementation of the NDP3, while providing the anchor of government to policy implementation and successive disbursements that will be premised on physical consolidation and discipline. That is according to what the report says. In addition, the IMF board provided a new SDR allocation to Uganda worth $419 million in August 2020, leading to an increase in both gross external reserves and long-term liabilities of the government. The government, however, has full discretion over the use of the new SDR allocation, either to build external reserves or finance the budget. The use of the new SDR allocation for budget financing, should need arise, would, however, lead to an increase in total public debt. Moreover, if you could look at it, it would attract the variable interest rate currently standing at 0.05% per annum. According to the report, domestic risks include political pressures for higher current spending, poor prioritizing of spending, as well as the insufficient implementation of the domestic revenue mobilization composition of financing. This is of the domestic revenue mobilization strategy, and a shift in the composition of financing towards non-concessional loans. Okay. Away from that, let's head to the international scene from our neighbors in Kenya. Kenya Power holds about 9.8 billion Kenyan shillings in dead stock. The Energy Ministry of Kenya has said this is underlining the electricity suppliers' messy procurement programs. Let's have more of the details.
Energy Principal Secretary Gordon Chihalangwa said an audit has revealed piles of idle stocks at the Unity farm, including power transformers. Insiders at Kenya Power, however, said the dead stock include items such as cables, meters and transformers that had been sitting in the warehouses for more than 5 years. Last year, the Kenya Power Board insisted that the company recognize the diminution in value of non-moving inventory by charging the loss of value to the income statement. This partly contributed to the company posting a historic 7 billion shilling loss in 2020. President Uhuru Kenyatta in April appointed a task force to review all power purchase deals with independent producers. Renegotiating the energy prices and other terms downwards by the end of December is one of the recommendations in a report presented to the president. The team recommended a 33% cut in electricity prices, which would bring the average cost of a kilowatt hour to 16 shillings from the current 24 shillings a unit. The electricity distributor has also been barred from finalizing any unconcluded power purchase deal or renewing expiring contracts with the producers in the wake of a rise in power bills that hit a 38-month high in August. The flawed contracts have exposed Kenya Power to paying onerous capacity charges to energy producers even when their plants are idle. Kenya Power returned a net loss of 2.9 billion shillings in the financial year ended June 2020, its first in 17 years.
This year appointed a task force to review all power purchase deals with independent producers, renegotiating the energy prices and other terms downwards by the end of December is one of the recommendations in a report presented to the president. Now, the team recommended a 33% cut in electricity prices, which would bring the average cost of a kilowatt hour to 16 Kenyan shillings from the current 24 units per hour. The electricity distributor has also been banned from finalizing any unconcluded power purchase deal or renewing expiring contracts with the producers in a wake of a rise in power bills that hit a 38-month high in August. The flawed contracts have exposed Kenya Power to paying onerous capacity charges to energy producers even when their plants are idle. As Kenyan Power returned the net loss of 2.98 billion Kenyan shillings in the financial year ended June 2020, its first in the last 17 years. Away, lastly, from the international scene, Afrik Bank seeks new fund chief executive officer after the death of the Kenyan executive. The new fund chief executive officer is set to replace Kenyan banker Philip Ojwang Kamau, who died early this year. More of this story. The African Export-Import Bank, Afrik Bank, is looking for a new chief executive to head its Fund for Export Development in Africa, FEDA, to replace Kenyan banker Philip Ojwang Kamau, who died earlier this year. Dr. Kamau was, until his death, aged 61 on January 20th in Cairo, the first head of the recently created fund, having been appointed to the role in 2018. Afrik Bank said in a notice published last week that it has contracted London-based executive headhunter Willis Partnership to aid the CEO search. The fund was set up with an initial capital outlay of $100 million. Fund companies in Afrik Bank's key focus sectors, which include agribusiness, manufacturing, consumer and retail, financial services, technology, travel and tourism, transport and logistics, and industrial parks. The Kigali-based FEDA invests in all market segments in Africa, including Kenya, but says it has its greatest focus on small and medium-sized enterprises. Dr. Kamau played a key role in fronting Kenya to host Afrik Bank's 3 billion shilling regional headquarters, and Nairobi's reluctance to grant the institution diplomatic status, so it lose out to Kampala at the end of 2018. The top banker had joined the multilateral tender in 1994 after he was seconded by the African Development Bank, becoming one of its pioneer staff members. He moved up the ranks to become the senior director for finance in 2007. He spearheaded the creation of an equity investment arm of the bank, which became FEDA. Afrik Bank, which finances and promotes African trade, has in the past decade become a significant player in best. FEDA invests in all market segments in Africa, including Kenya, but says it has its greatest focus on small and medium-sized enterprises. Dr. Kamau played a key role in fronting Kenya to host Afrik's 3 billion shillings regional headquarters, but Nairobi's reluctancy to grant the institution diplomatic status so it lose out to Kampala at the end of 2018. The top banker had joined the multilateral lender in 1994 after he was seconded by the African Development Bank, becoming one of its pioneer staff members. He moved up the ranks to become the senior director for finance in 2007. He spearheaded the creation of an equity investment arm of the bank, which became FEDA. Afrik Bank, which finances and promotes African trade, has in the past decade become a significant player in Kenya's economy. Away from that, I will return with the topic of discussion. This time around, we'll be talking branding in business with Andrew Berige. This is SMB.